Hello everyone, my name is Sarah and welcome back to my channel. We are somehow so close to the end of 2024, which means we are one step away from 2025. So today, after being absent since like the end of October, I am going to go through what I have achieved in 2024 and what I am planning for next year. Because the past few months, dragging a little bit into burnout, and I need to sit back and reassess basically for 2025 to avoid that happening again. I always start my years off going, this is going to be such a good year, and it starts off as such a good year and then it just, you get it. The first thing I want to do is officially announce that the 1991 challenge is back. Yes, I am going to do it again. Hi, sorry for the late notice. We start on January 1st. 1991 challenge is where you work for 90 minutes a day for 90 days in a row, focusing on one project. I will link the original website that I found this challenge on, plus my video explaining what it was the last time I did this back in April, down below if anybody wants to take a look. It's my way with my ADHD to actually get some work done and form some sort of habit and consistency in regards to my writing. Did it continue after the 1991 challenge finished this year? No, it did not. I'd hoped it would linger a little bit, but I crashed and burnt out the month after I completed it last time, and then we'll figure something out for that as well, don't worry. As I did last time, I am going to be streaming every single 90 minutes that I do for the entirety of the challenge. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time though, because it is just going to be a 90-minute sprint each and every single day, with sort of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The compromise that I decided upon, because I do understand how annoying it was for my entire family when I did this earlier this year. With my desk being in a very, very public space and me doing my streams majorly around bedtime, there was a lot of stopping and starting, a lot of interruptions while we weren't sprinting on our breaks, which let's try and avoid that this time. I feel like that would be the best way to avoid any elongated and unnecessary distractions from the kiddies. Right? I suffer through that. You guys don't need to also suffer through that when you're trying to do your work. This 1991 challenge, I am going to be focusing on writing draft 3 of my YA paranormal fantasy of Stars and Smoke and Other Intangible Things. I have beta notes from my wonderful beta Kate, who read it back at the end of last year, at the end of 2023. Going into January 2024, and I'm only now, a year later, starting to work back on it again. You see my issue, right? I'll talk about my issue again a little bit later. Right, let's get into the actual point of this. I did prepare some stuff, so I did that. In 2024, my goal for writing was to have quarterly goals. So each quarter I would pick a few specific things that I needed to work on, whether it was outlining, project A, or writing 4 chapters of project B, etc., etc. And it worked for the most part. For the most part, it worked. For another part, it didn't work, but we will go into that when I discuss what I'm going to be doing in 2025. I also decided in 2024 that I was not going to put any focus on my progress on word count. So I did not focus on my word count at all whatsoever until later on this year, which again I will talk about a little bit, because I sort of realised that if I focus too much on word count and hitting a certain amount of words, and that would be good progress for me, and then I would feel bad that I didn't hit that certain amount of words, and that was giving me too much pressure. So instead I focused on how much time I spent working on my projects, which again started off really well, tapered off a little bit at the end. But for 2024, and I'm going to read this list and it's not actually going to sound like a lot of stuff, And I might feel a little bit bad about how much stuff I did do compared to what I didn't do, but we're just going to ignore that for now. I read 2024, my book goal every year is reading 12 books. I've read 11 books this year. I've never ever come close to hitting 12 books. Usually I do like 3, maybe 5 if I'm lucky. I've read 11. My oldest daughter doing ballet and then doing basketball helped a lot with that, because I would read while I waited for her to do that once a week, which was absolutely fantastic. I do have a 12th book. I'm filming this on the 27th, I do believe, of December. I have a 12th book, which I have only read 2 chapters of. So whether or not I will read this by the end of the year and actually make 12 books, I have absolutely no idea. But I'm really happy that I have pushed through and I've read 11 books. And 11 books might not seem like a lot to some people, but for me, that's really good for me. And I'm hoping to do the same again in 2025. I have no more books on my TBR list now, actually, to be fair. So I'm actually going to have to go out and find some books to want to read. That's going to be my first struggle. I don't know if this is in order of what I did. We'll see. So in 2024, I completed draft 3 of Beneath the Hawthorn Lies, which is my YA fairy fantasy. And that was a long time in the making, finishing that 3rd draft. It took me absolutely ages to do so. It's taken me absolutely ages to finish any of the drafts I completed this year, because I leave so much time between all of my projects, which is not the best. So draft 3, Beneath the Hawthorn Lies, has been finished. I think I did that back in February. That story has now been shelved, because I didn't want to focus on too many different projects this year, so I could make decent progress on a very limited amount of projects. Spoiler alert, that didn't work out quite that well either. And it's not to say that I won't ever go back to Beneath the Hawthorn Lies. I do enjoy the story, I enjoy the twist. There's something about it, I think, that I'm not quite sure of. In regards to either plot or in regards to the characters, I think, despite the fact it is my favourite title I've ever created of all time, and it does come with my favourite book cover that I have created myself of all time, the characters are not my favourite characters that I have ever created, and I think it needs a lot of work, I think, in order to figure out the core of what the issue of that story is. I cannot pinpoint exactly what it is that is bugging me, or exactly what it is that needs to change in order for it to be what I feel it needs to be. And it might just be me being too picky, and it might be fine, but my brain is going, there's something not right, and I can't find what that is. We'll need to reread that at some point. I might add it back this year just to give it a read through to see if I can pinpoint it out now after so long of not reading it. I also finished draft 3 of And So We Covet, which is my YA high fantasy. I don't feel there's much wrong with the story now, to be fair. I think after all of the betas I've had and the work I've put into the characters and their character arcs, I think was most of the issues I had with the story, and then a little bit with the pacing. I think And So We Covet is in a good place. I'm happy from what I remember. I haven't read that through actually since I finished the draft of that. I think that was roughly in September-ish of this year, so not too long ago. I feel like I'm happy with what I have in it. It still has my favourite character of all time in that story. And after working on it for so long, I think 2017 I wrote the first draft, and I'm only on the 3rd draft and it's 2024. You see where the fact that I still love the story and the fact that I still love those characters and the fact that it still contains my most ever favourite character that I've ever written of all time says something. It says that this story is important to me, that I enjoy this story, and it says to me that it does deserve to still be worked on and somehow at some point put out there for the rest of the world to read. And yeah, I'm excited that I've finished the third draft of that. I'm excited I did that. Again, it's been a couple of years. I've been doing from 2.5 draft to draft 3, which is so sucky. I don't work on my projects enough, do I? I really don't. But I am excited that that's done, and I'm excited to move forward with And So We Covet as well. If anybody is interested in beta reading draft 3 of And So We Covet, I'll leave a link down below with more information about the story itself. In April of 2024, I started the 1991 challenge for the first time, where I wrote the first draft of my YA dark academia, I say with rabbit ears, fantasy, Bird Whistle House. But that was my first attempt at really trying to outline really well and make sure that every character had, you know, their correct motivations and character arc, and that all of the plot was really wound tightly together and everything made sense in order to create the best first draft that I could have. Because I noticed that with a lot of my first drafts, where I don't outline really well, the work my brain knows I'm going to have to put into the story to make it better puts me off working on the story. And I did not do as good of a job outlining that story as I hoped I would, or as I assumed I would. And while I was doing the 1991 challenge, even though there's no end goal, it literally is just working on it for 90 minutes a day, I became very focused on finishing the book within those 90 days. And that definitely caused some issues with the plot and the world building and what was going on. The fact that I didn't outline all of it before I started also contributed to that. There was a lot of stuff that I added in. There was a lot of mistakes that I made with how things were supposed to work, a lot of things I changed around, which then didn't make sense for other stuff that I'd already planned in the story. And that is going to be hard work to go back and fix. That's an issue for future Sarah though. But the 1991 challenge was completed. I think I wrote about 60,000 words for the first draft of Bird Whistle House. And it was my first real dive into dark academia. And it was my first real dive into something that was a much more focus on characters and their stories and how they affected the plot rather than the plot. And I haven't read through that yet. I've read through a few random chapters because I remember enjoying those chapters, so I just read through a few of those chapters. There are some really, for me, really good, well written moments in the chapters that I wrote. There's also some really bad moments where I just like, well, whatever, I need to get to the next chapter, even though I didn't, right? That's my thing. I'm not going to put it on the back burner just yet. There's some things I need to do with the first draft in order to decide what I'm going to fully do with it. 2024 really was, I feel like, the year of me finishing drafts, finally. And then not doing anything with them. I ADHD'd Too Close to the Sun in 2024, in which I did exactly what I knew I would do. I would ADHD Too Close to the Sun. I would start using it and then not use it. And created my Everything Project Bible folder in order for me to have all of the tools I felt would work for me and my ADHD and my autism into writing a first draft. And I use this a lot for when I was planning and outlining my new Project Grey, which I'll go into in a minute. And for the prep that I did for it, that didn't all just fall on the floor. It worked really well. Have I utilised it in the way that I wanted it to be utilised in how I'm writing it? I haven't at the moment, but there's a reason for that, which I'll go into next. But I feel like, yes, it's 100% definitely going to help me, even with all of the revisions I have to do for all of my current projects. I am going to utilise this a lot more. I do have space for all of my projects in here as well. It is literally for everything. I created a new plot outline specifically for me and how I prefer my stories to go, which is the ladder method. I will link that down below in the description box as well if anybody's interested in hearing about how I'm going to start outlining and working for all of my novels. It is literally everything that I think is a weakness for me while I write. Everything I need to combat those weaknesses and keep everything coherent and keep everything on track and keep all of the information that I might randomly add while I'm writing on track. So it's easier for me to revise later because I have kept track of everything that I have changed or added or altered, so I won't forget that I have done so. 1 second. I need to organise that folder. It is not actually organised at all whatsoever. The last thing that I have achieved, and I say achieved with a grain of salt for this last one, is the 100k quarter 4, which was the instead of NaNoWriMo, because all of that crap happened, the 100k quarter 4 started by Kate Kavanagh, which is where you write 100,000 words in quarter 4, and my plan was to write the first draft of Project Grey, which is my new YA high fantasy trilogy, which I'm using my Everything Project Bible to create and organise, and I think I have done an okay job doing all of that, I will say. I started off the 100k quarter 4 really well, and then it went terrible, and I think the word count, and I think the fact that I was focusing on word count really was what did it in for me. I was so concerned with hitting the 1086 words a day. I was so focused on the fact that, oh my god, I've fallen 2 or 3 days behind. I'm going to have to write extra on these days in order to catch up. The writing quality for the first draft, yes, I know it's a first draft, I know, don't, really started suffering because I was like, okay, I'm stuck on this chapter. I just need to write whatever to get past this chapter so I can then move on to the next one, because I need to get the words in, because I've got a word count deadline that I need to do. And not focusing on the quality and not referring to what was in my book. I know that there are some things that I've made mistakes on that I've just put in because I didn't have the time to double check and look and see and reference all of the stuff that I had planned in order to be able to reference it to write the book. And I just gave up. I was like, no, I'm done. I can't. It comes to the point I knew I'm not going to catch up. And yeah, so I wrote about 50,000 words over the course of 2 months. I think I have maybe 7 or 8 chapters left of the first draft in order to finish it. But it's done. Project Grey is done for now. I think trying to focus on the word count has sort of put me off working on that story just a little bit at the moment, which I'm not super fond of the fact that that has happened, because I was so excited for this story. So I think I just need to take some time with that and then ease back into it in order to finish the first draft. So that was everything that I achieved in 2024. Again, a lot of finishing projects, and which, yes, is progress, but very few and far between, and not a lot of focus on ensuring consistency with working on said projects. Doing quarterly goals definitely worked because I had something in those months to focus on, but working on the amount of projects that I have definitely ensured a decent progress for each of those projects. That's not the way I wanted to say that, but with having so many projects and focusing on a different set of projects in each quarter, I realised I wasn't, and this is something I've realised consistently over the years, that I'm not putting enough focus on the projects, and I'm not putting enough regular focus on the projects. Again, I'm working on Of Stars and Smoke and Other Intangible Things at the beginning of next year. The last time I worked on that story was at the end of 2023, which is almost an entire year of not working on a project, which is definitely not the way to go. If I do want to get published one day, I need to put more focus and spend more time working on all of these projects and making it a month or two at most before going back to that project. And that leads me to what I'm going to be doing for 2025. Once again, the year that I'm actually going to get some decent progress done on my projects. And I say that every year and it fails. But each year I'm trying a new way to achieve that. And what doesn't work the year before, we'll redo and refigure something out, and we'll see if it works for the year after. So for 2025, there will be no quarterly goals. There will be no word count goals. Again, they stress me out way too much. They never used to. They do now. It's such a shame. I'm so sad. But I will be focused instead on time goals. And the way that I'm going to do that is I will give each project that I want to work on a specific amount of time that I have to work on it per week. And then all I need to do is ensure that I spend X amount of time on that project per week. That way I am focusing on more than one project at a time. I am progressing on more than one project at a time. I don't have to worry about leaving a project behind because I'm putting too much focus on one single project. And it means I can actually fully work on all of my projects and hopefully not get too burnt out or uninspired on one project and then I'm still have to suffer through it because that's what I happen to be working on. These time goals might shift month to month, they might shift quarter to quarter. I'll see exactly how it goes in the future and how it works. But these are just the minimum amount of time I would like to work on these projects. And doing it time-wise means that I can work on 10 minutes a day, which isn't a lot on different projects. I can focus a full X amount of time on one day, focused on that one project that requires that amount of time. And I can sort of pick and choose depending on how I'm feeling, what work I've got, how busy I am, how much work I put into. And I can pick which projects I want to work on first, and then, you know, if I'm feeling a little bit burnt out towards the end of the week, anything that is a little bit easier to work on, for anything I've got to read throughs on, for example, can wait to the end of the week because that's a lot easier for me to do, and I can save that time for when I'm not feeling it and still be putting some decent amount of work in. My screen has changed. As you can see, there was 4 projects on this yesterday, there is now 5. Is it the best thing to add another project into my list when I failed so miserably working decently on 4 projects last year? Maybe a little bit. But with this new time goal that I am doing, hopefully I can make that work. We shall see. So the 5 projects I'm going to be working on in 2025 are Of Stars and Smoke and Other Intangible Things. That will be my 1991 challenge project, again starting on the 1st of January. The second project is And So We Covet. The third is Bird Whistle House. The fourth is Project Grey. And the 5th is a project that I am bringing back that I last worked on in 2023, I believe, which is my YA witchy urban fantasy, They Lead the Hunt. Most of these are in different phases of being done, so I hope the different types of work that I have to do is also going to help stop making everything feel so monotonous and boring. Am I going to keep all 5 of these projects going for the entire year? I don't know. It depends on where I get to them. It depends if I reread through Bird Whistle House, if I have then the urge to re-outline and go into a second draft. It depends on what I can do with what I have written. Will I keep the time goals I have for the entire year? Again, that depends. If I want to put more focus on one novel, might up that. If I have more work to do on another novel, I may up that. And we'll see how it goes as we go throughout the year. So those were my 2024 accomplishments and my 2025 goals, and also a fun little 1991 2025 happening. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any big plans or goals for 2025. If you have any book recommendations I can read that is YA, that is fantasy, that does not focus on romance, because I don't deal with that, please let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the new year. Bye.